Hello friends, welcome back to the shop and to the start of a new restoration series where we're going to be working on this Aldo Velani interesting shape that I don't quite know what to call. It's reminiscent of a Dublin or a bent Dublin, but it's got this square shank on it, and somewhat reminiscent of a bulldog, but it certainly isn't a bulldog. I don't know what to call it, but it's a very nice pipe, fits very well in the hand, has nice chunky walls. I like this pipe a lot, so I'm looking forward to getting this back into smoking shape. The Aldo Velani, I don't know a lot about the company, but you can see the stamping here. This is an Aldo Velani Barolo. Ostensibly they're an Italian company, and I know the pipes at one point were imported by Lane. I don't know if that's still the case. This one has a, somewhere on here has a, there it is, a number stamping, which is apparently a shape designation. That's 212. You can see that right there between the at the intersection of the shank and the stem on the shank. And beyond that, it has a nice logo here that's part of the stem. It's actually a raised logo that's sort of added onto the stem. And the only other marking is that it is stamped right here at the edge of the shank with the word Italy. So the pipe itself is in fairly nice shape. You've probably noticed the stem moving around, so the stem needs to be tightened on this. And I'll show you how I do that when the time comes. It needs to be cleaned up a bit. There's a bit of buildup and chatter on the stem. And of course it needs to be cleaned out on the inside. In terms of the internals of the stummel, the outside of the stummel looks fairly good. You know, no major issues there. Got a nice, very rustic sandblast going on, and an interesting kind of two-tone finish on that. So that's nice, and not a lot of charring around the top. That should clean up well. However, well, inside, at first glance, it doesn't look too bad. It needs to be reamed a bit. It needs to be cleaned up a little, but there is actually a rather large hole that goes straight through. This is a burnout. I'll try to show you that from inside the bowl as well. So you can see there. And you know, anytime there's a burnout, it's interesting to try to figure out how that could have happened. That is sort of at the bottom of the bowl, a little bit more towards the side, and it seems a bit odd that it would burn out there. And you can see this is not just purely burned out. Somebody was picking at it, maybe tried an epoxy or something like that on it, but it didn't hold. This is interesting. So there's a couple of reasons why a bowl would burn out. There's, you know, the obvious of you're not smoking it, right? So you only light one side of the tobacco, and that burns down the outer edge of the tobacco that's packed in, and that produces excessive heat around one side of the bowl. Especially if you do that before you start to build cake, that's going to lead to burnout. Smoking in, you know, outdoors in very windy conditions can sometimes lead to a differential burn on one side versus the other, and that can be a problem. Using a torch lighter, cigar torch lighter, is often linked to burnout, and that can certainly do it. But in a case like this, you know, this pipe doesn't look that old, or it doesn't seem to have been smoked that much, and yet it burned right through down here at the bottom. And interestingly, if you look at where that hole is, I'll see if I can catch this for you. It is directly across from the air hole, from the airway. And what I think happened, and I might be able to illustrate this with a little rod here, I think that when the airway was being drilled, it was over-drilled. And you can see how easily that comes right through. The drill bit bit into this wall. And it either wasn't noticed by the maker or was just ignored. And somebody bought this, it had a little nick in that wall, and that seeded the burnout. So it's unfortunate, but that is what will happen. If there's any sort of imperfections in the bowl and you don't have a good bowl coating and a very careful approach to breaking in the pipe. So what are we going to do with this? Well, I've already talked about the stem, and that's obvious. We're going to clean it. Nothing exciting there. Clean it, and then we're going to stretch the tenon a bit. And again, I will show you how I go about doing that. The stummel also needs to be cleaned, but the big job is going to be this hole. Now we can't just use the pipe mortar that I showed in the last series on the Bing's favorite. The reason being that this goes all the way through. We're actually going to have to replace some briar here. And to do that, what I'm planning to do is actually to clean this out and get all the charred briar away. So I want to have raw briar all the way around here. I'll probably wind up making this quite a bit larger. And then I will take a piece of scrap briar and I'll actually turn that into a dowel and shape it to fit whatever hole we wind up with. And I may wind up shaping the walls of that a little roughly just to allow some epoxy to settle in there. After the epoxy is fully cured, we'll then have to go in and sand both inside and outside to get that flush with the surface. Probably do a bit of rustication around here to try to match the sandblast, and you know, might as well just plan on having to refinish this because it's going to be very difficult to match this stain. So I have to think about that some, but we will probably strip the finish off of this before we even start to drill. So that's the plan. This is going to take a couple of episodes. Not sure how many yet because I don't know until I really get into it how much time it's going to take. But it should be interesting, and I hope that you will follow along as we go through this restoration and try to repair this otherwise very nice pipe. So if you want to follow and you're subscribed, you will get updates as they're posted. If you'd like to follow and you're not subscribed, please click the subscribe button. Don't pick it, that won't work. Click the subscribe button and you'll get updates when I post new videos, so you'll be able to follow this series as it goes along. So I thank all of you for taking the time to watch. I look forward, as always, to your comments and questions. And until next time, I wish you all the best. Goodbye now.